Be lining up the stationary arm on our proximal segment again. So we're going to be lining it up with the fibular head, and we're going to be going along the length of the fibula. And then our moving arm is going to line up with our fifth metatarsal. So that's going to put our axis way down here. Okay? So first I need to get him to 0. Go ahead and relax, I'll look at passive range of motion. There you go. So I have him at 0 there. Oh, I lied. Got him at 0 there. Okay, and now I'm going to bring him into dorsiflexion, which he doesn't like, and I have him at 5 degrees. Now, most people are not going to have a restriction because you need 0 to be able to stand. If you have someone like your guy in the cadaver lab, he probably couldn't have gotten to 0 because he was bedridden for so long and his feet are kind of stuck in plantar flexion. Okay, so plantar flexion is going to be the same thing. We need to make sure that we can get him to anatomical neutral, which he really doesn't like.
Is that this 90 degrees?
Yes.
Okay.
And now we're going to come down. And he's at 27 degrees, 0 to 27 degrees. Normal range of motion for plantar flexion is going to be 0 to 45 to 50, so he's a little bit restricted. For dorsiflexion, it's 0 to 20.
You only had 5?
Okay. Yes. He doesn't even have ankle motion.
That was passive.
Yeah, I don't think he would have much more. We can try it. Can you point your toes for me? So it would be weird, right, if he had more 10, 20, 30, 40. Of course, he has to show me up. So he's at 44. So I maybe didn't have the strength. It's all me, not you, Adam. So passive range of motion should never be less than active range of motion. So then that's therapist error. Okay. Now for supination and pronation, again, this is going to be those measuring all the components of the test. The stationary arm is going to line up with the anterior aspect of the tibia, and the moving arm is going to line up with the second ray. The axis is going to be right in that mortise. Okay, so you're going to look at the malleoli. Go there. Okay, now the reason why you need a flexible goniometer is, see what I'm doing to the goniometer from the side. Now, what I like to do is have it in position and then put my hands right over it, and then if I'm doing passive range of motion, I can move him like that. Okay, so he's at 0 to 20, I can't see, I'm getting glare, 28 or 29, it must be 28 because I think these are by 2 degree increments. And 0 to 30 is normal for that. It would be 0 to 20, and he is at 0 to 18.
Is that eversion or inversion?
So, I'm sorry, this is supination and this is pronation. Your stationary arm is going to be on the calf. So you want to don't make that line way up here. Make the line where you can draw and your goniometer will fit right over it. Okay. So can everyone see what I've done with the goni? So his resting position, he's resting in a position of inversion. My eyes are so bad. So I'm guessing he's at about 12 degrees of inversion. So if we were going, we want to make sure he can get straight. Okay. Now, if I draw my lines correctly, I will know right away if my goni is misplaced. For some of you, you tend to focus so much on the moving arm that you forget about this one. Well, if this one moves and it's no longer on your mark, you know that you're off. So again, don't draw that mark up here. Draw it down where you can actually stick your goni right on it. So if I'm going to do eversion, that I can also move the goni. In someone who's less tight, I would grab it this way, but I'm really struggling. So I'm really struggling to even get him to 0. So for him, he has 0 degrees of eversion passively, and inversion, I can get him to 0, so I'll start him at 0, and then see how far I can take him. Are you doing okay?
Yeah.
I'm pressing pretty hard. Okay.
And take that measurement.
Okay, so we talked about that oftentimes we consider subtalar neutral to be an first ray. Then I'm pinching the proximal phalanx with the other hand so that that goni is lined up there. But look, if I moved my hand, it no longer looks like I'm following his big toe, right? So don't be fooled by the big toe. Make sure you're on that proximal phalanx. Okay, so I would come up with first ray MTP a deduction of, well, it must be 12 degrees. Okay, now if I'm going to measure a abduction, I have to get him to 0. Okay, so I've gotten him to 0, and now I'm measuring how much he can abduct. And he's getting about 3 degrees of abduction. So abduction would be 0 to 3, whereas his passive position was back in that 12 range. Just like what you've already done, it's just now the knee is straight instead of the knee bent. Okay? Not so complicated. You've already done that. The one thing I'm seeing with the goniometers for the dorsiflexion is that, and I'm seeing it more with plantar flexion, make sure that your stationary arm is bisecting your fibular head and your malleolus. People are having their axis too posterior, and then when they go into plantar flexion, you're not bisecting the segments. So make sure you have that axis down far enough, but that you're also keeping it in line with the fibula. Okay? So in this position, this would be the gastroc length test. It's a passive test, so I'm going to hold her there, and I'm going to take that measurement. Now, soleus, if I wanted to measure length of a soleus, how many joints does a soleus cross?
1.
1. Its agonist is gastroc, so I want to get rid of gastroc, so what am I going to do? Bend it up. So, we're going to put the hip at 45 degrees of flexion, the knee at 45 degrees of flexion. Does this look vaguely familiar? It should look exactly like
knee flexion.
Kind of smart I look today, aren't you?
I really don't. It doesn't look familiar.
So it's going to be here, 45 here, 45 here. Doesn't this look like what you did when you measured just ankle dorsiflexion?
Oh, yeah.
So we're now calling this a soleus muscle length test, but really it's just the goniometric position for ankle dorsiflexion. Okay? The second way to test soleus in our third muscle length test is go ahead and go prone for me, please. Just make sure your head stays neutral, whether you use your hand as a pillow or anything, it's fine. Okay. So the third way is in prone. You're going to flex the knee to 90 degrees, and now you're going to measure dorsiflexion again. Okay? Now, if you're measuring dorsiflexion for the soleus in either way, and the end field doesn't feel muscular, would you document that as a soleus muscle length test? No, because now there's something else that's restricting that motion, and so you're not getting a true muscle length test. Okay? I don't know why we have specific muscle length tests for soleus as a one-joint muscle, and we don't have that for many other one-joint muscles, but here you go. So there are 2 different ways that you can measure soleus muscle length, either in supine with 45-45 or in prone with the knee at 90. Okay, gastroc, just have the knee straight. Okay, those are our muscle length tests.